Gohan vs. Cell is one of the most iconic fights in anime history and arguably has the best moment in all of Dragon Ball, with Gohan introducing Super Saiyan 2 into the franchise. This fight's so great that it even had in-universe lore. 7 years after the fight against Cell, references to both Gohan and Cell himself are still happening. One of the most controversial examples of this is Dabura, the supreme demon king of the demon realm, being compared to the very Cell that threatened the universe prior. This single comparison sparked a debate about who would win between the two of them, something we'll be going over in this video here. In addition to this, we have the other controversial debate, like if Gohan actually used Super Saiyan 2 in his fight with Dabura. Since Gohan is stated to be weaker than he was 7 years ago, it became a shocker to everyone that he was even able to fight against Dabura at all, given that he should be as strong as Cell. And finally, the battle between Gohan and Cell seems to be going on still to this very day. Even though Gohan in the end was victorious, people often question if he actually was more powerful than Cell was, so we'll be going over and explaining that aspect of things as well. We'll be using the anime, manga, and various guides to elaborate our points here. Drop me a comment on any other versus battle you'd like to see in the future, and join the Discord if you haven't yet. I promise you'll have a good time. Without further ado, let's get into the video. In chronological order, we can talk about Gohan vs. Cell first. Something that I think is important to acknowledge in this fight is the fact that Gohan had Super Saiyan 2 and a Rage Boost on top of that. This was the reason that Cell, before his rebirth, was getting absolutely destroyed by Gohan with very minimal effort. For those of you who don't know, Gohan throughout the series has received what fans have dubbed Rage Boosts. These quick bursts of anger have allowed Gohan to surpass whatever his limits were and exponentially increase his power, to the point where he would be a threat to whoever stood on the opposite end of it. So, Gohan did in fact become twice as strong when he became a Super Saiyan 2 with an unquantifiable Rage Boost on top of this. After Gohan proceeded to bully Perfect Cell, he opts to explode and take the world with him, killing Goku in the process. When he returns, he's much more powerful than he was before and states that he's powered up like Gohan, or in some other translations, he's almost as powerful as Gohan. If you took the latter into consideration, then the initial debate here would be over, since Cell would be admitting here that he's not as strong as Gohan. However, this is not only inconsistent with Cell's character, but contradicts the statements and guides we have here. One of them actually stating in the 50th anniversary V-Jump that powered up, there's nothing that could be done against Cell, implying Cell would be greater if not equal to Gohan. In the Daizenshuu 2, it states that Cell was not dead. He regenerated in his perfect form, acquired instant transmission, and became the strongest being. This statement would seemingly be in support of the fact that Cell was now stronger than Gohan at the time of his arrival. Then they makes a comment saying that there might not be anything that they can do against Cell this time after he's arrived back on the planet. So you can see how this can be quite the debatable topic when it comes to Gohan vs. Cell. Now let's make a call back to what we talked about earlier involving Gohan's Rage Boost. After the death of Goku, it's apparent that Gohan is no longer in his angry state and feels horrible for letting his father down. This is important because it would suggest that Gohan after this point did technically get weaker since Cell's arrival. Your mental stability contributes quite a bit towards your power in the world of Dragon Ball. When your right-mindedness is disrupted, this can influence your power. So not only will Gohan be slightly mental nerfed, but his Rage Boost has subsided following Cell's return. So the statements that suggest Cell is the strongest at this time does make sense. All of the scans supporting Cell being stronger than Gohan also show a Gohan that hasn't yet regained his resolve. When Cell opts to kill Vegeta, Gohan shields him from the blast, which damages Gohan severely, so much to the point where it's stated that he was at half of his original strength. The fact that Cell was able to hurt Gohan so severely with a blast that was intended to kill Vegeta also shows his dominance and strength at that time. When the final beam clash is initiated, Gohan is losing pretty badly, and a lot of the reason for this is him being remorseful and focusing on everything but the fight that's in front of him. It's here where Goku steps back in to build Gohan's morale and has him tap back into his Rage Boost at the very end, which overpowers Cell, taking him out for good. I think the proper assessment of who's stronger between the two goes something like this. When Gohan has his Rage Boost, he is much stronger than Cell, and it's not even close. When Gohan is just a regular Super Saiyan 2, he's still most likely stronger, however it's a much closer fight and you can argue that Cell is stronger here. Morale hurt Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, however, is way inferior to Cell and it showed a lot in their confrontation. So for the Cell vs. Gohan aspect of the video, I will be giving it to Gohan. The clash between Dabura and Cell is one of the most interesting what-if matchups, one that brings together two of the most dangerous villains from completely different eras. Dabura, the Demon King and ruler of the Demon Realm, was introduced during the Buu Saga as a fearsome warrior whose power rivaled that of Super Saiyan tier. Cell, on the other hand, was the culmination of years of research and genetic engineering, a being designed to surpass the Sea Fighters by combining their very DNA. Ever since Dabura's debut, fans have speculated how he would fare against the monstrous Perfect Cell, especially given the comparisons drawn between him and the Cell games era fighter characters like Goku and Supreme Kai. But while both characters left a lasting impact on the series, they come from vastly different points in Dragon Ball's power scale. In this video, we'll break down their abilities, feats, and implications from the story itself to determine who truly comes out on top in a head-to-head matchup. Dabura, the Demon King of the Demon Realm, or Cell, the ultimate artificial life form. If you enjoy conversations like this and want to take part in deeper Dragon Ball discussions, I highly recommend you to join the Dragon Ball HQ Discord server. Link below in the description. We'll be diving into this topic and more over there. Now, without further delay, let's begin. The first thing that needs to be firmly established in the matchup between Dabura and Cell is just how powerful Gohan was during the Majin Buu Saga, a topic that's often debated and in many cases misunderstood due to translation inconsistencies and shifting context. After the Cell games, Gohan enjoys a long era of peace, which naturally leads him to becoming more relaxed and less battle-hardened. By the time the threat of Majin Buu begins to surface, Gohan's fighting spirit has noticeably dulled. Still, when danger arises, he quickly taps back into his Super Saiyan 2 form, the same transformation he used to defeat Cell 7 years prior. When Goku first senses Dabura's energy, he remarks that Dabura, even while suppressing his power, is on the same level as Cell from a few years ago. Importantly, the version of Cell being referenced here is Super Perfect Cell, the form that he achieved after regenerating from near death and received a significant Zenkai boost. This transformation was likened to a Super Saiyan 2 level increase, putting Super Perfect Cell above what Goku or Vegeta could handle at the time. However, the narrative doesn't stop there. As the events unfold, it's revealed that Goku underestimated Dabura's power. He later admits that Dabura is actually much stronger than he initially believed, which would place the Demon King above that of the level of Super Perfect Cell. Since there's nothing in the story that contradicts this revised assessment, Goku's later statement stands as the more accurate evaluation. So, when examining Dabura's strength, it's fair to say that he firmly exceeds Super Perfect Cell in raw power based on Goku's own evolving analysis. This is a crucial point to understand when comparing these two, as it shifts the dynamic of the matchup significantly. Now, the reason Gohan was mentioned earlier is because he plays a key role in why many fans believe that Dabura is actually weaker than Cell. During the Buu Saga, both Vegeta and Goku comment that Gohan isn't as strong as he was during the Cell games, leading to what seems like a contradiction. After all, how can Gohan be weaker than he was against Cell, yet still be fighting on equal footing with someone like Dabura, who Goku himself later says is stronger than Cell? Well, the answer lies in the deeper understanding of Gohan's power, and it actually resolves the confusion without contradicting anything in the story. First, it's important to clarify that Gohan was indeed using Super Saiyan 2 in his fight with Dabura. This is confirmed in official sources like Daizenshu, which states that Gohan not only accessed Super Saiyan 2, but had also trained after the Cell games to properly maintain and control the form. So the issue isn't that he wasn't using Super Saiyan 2, it's that he wasn't drawing from the same emotional power-up he had during the Cell games. What many fans overlook is that Gohan had a unique rage boost on top of his Super Saiyan 2 transformation during the battle with Cell. It was this surge of uncontrollable emotion sparked by witnessing Android 16's death and the suffering of his friends that elevated his power to overwhelming levels, making him far stronger than Cell at the time. We actually get further support for this idea later in the Buu Saga during his confrontation with Dabura and Babidi. And so, Gohan admits that I'm angry but not like last time. This subtle line reinforces the idea that while Gohan can still assess Super Saiyan 2, the sheer emotional fury that once boosted him beyond his limits simply isn't there anymore. This also aligns with another Daizenshu statement that notes Gohan hasn't lost any power since he was a child, implying that his base strength and potential are still intact, despite the 7 years of peace. The only difference is that he can no longer assess the same rage-induced version of Super Saiyan 2 he once used to dominate Cell. So when Vegeta and Goku say Gohan is weaker than before, they're referring specifically to what emotionally charged rage boost state Gohan looked like. Without that additional power, Gohan's standard Super Saiyan 2 form would naturally be on par with someone like Dabura, making the fight between them make far more sense in context. For some reason, there's still a persistent misconception in the Dragon Ball community that the idea of Gohan receiving a rage-induced power boost is just headcanon or speculation by fans. However, this belief doesn't hold up when you take a closer look at the series and its accompanying official materials. The reality is that Gohan's emotional outbursts are canonically recognized as a major component of his unique power progression. In fact, there's a substantial amount of dialogue and documentation that confirms this trait is a core aspect of his character. Let's start with the most direct and telling piece of evidence, Gohan's own words. During the Buu Saga, Gohan candidly admitted that he no longer is able to get as angry as he did during his fight with Cell. This confession isn't a reflection of his physical capabilities or his transformation level, rather it's a statement about his emotional state and the challenge of replicating the moment of sheer fury. He doesn't say he's gotten weaker overall, what he emphasizes is the absence of that same intense rage that once allowed him to push beyond his limits. That distinction is crucial. It illustrates that his full strength isn't consistently accessible through training alone. It's heavily dependent on emotional triggers. This notion is backed up again by Goku, who reinforces the point that during the Buu Saga, when he encourages Gohan to get angry like before and bring out the strength he displayed against Cell. Goku, who knows Gohan better than most people, clearly understands that what made Gohan so formidable wasn't just his transformation into Super Saiyan 2. It was the explosive emotional charge that powered it. This plea from Goku isn't just nostalgia, it's recognition of a recurring pattern in Gohan's power spikes. Further strengthening this interpretation is commentary from the Daizenshuu, one of the franchise's official encyclopedias. When discussing Gohan's Super Saiyan 2 form, it mentions explicitly that because Gohan could no longer draw upon his anger, he hadn't kept up with his training. When discussing Gohan's Super Saiyan 2 form, it explicitly mentions that because Gohan could no longer draw upon his anger and hadn't kept up with his training, he didn't possess the same level of power as he did during the Cell game. The guide doesn't cite his physical decline from inactivity, it ties his diminished battle power directly to his inability to summon that same emotional intensity. This is a significant statement as it shows how Gohan's emotional state is not only a thematic element of his character, but a mechanical part of his power scaling. And it doesn't end there. Multiple official guidebooks and source materials repeatedly refer to Gohan's tendency to grow significantly stronger when emotionally triggered. From his iconic transformation during the Battle of Cell to earlier moments in Dragon Ball Z, like when he exploded in power to protect his friends or family, this narrative thread is consistent. His surges in power almost always happen under the weight of emotional strain. It's not just a coincidence, it's a defining trait. Anger isn't just something that helps him, it's the catalyst for most of his powerful breakthroughs. This understanding of Gohan's power dynamic also brings clarity to the topic that has often confused the fans. Many people wonder how Dabura could be considered stronger than Cell and still be evenly matched by Gohan 7 years after the Cell games, but when you realize that Gohan's standard Super Saiyan 2 form without the added boost of anger is vastly inferior to his rage-fueled Super Saiyan 2, it makes complete sense. This disparity is even subtly acknowledged in the series. When Piccolo observes Majin Vegeta fighting against Fat Buu, he compares the energy he's sensing to the same level Gohan had during his Cell games performance. That speaks volumes. It tells us that Gohan's base Super Saiyan 2 form in the Buu Saga wasn't quite living up to that level, but at his peak, when emotionally pushed, he was capable of reaching that power once again. It's also important to note that Gohan first senses Fat Buu before Buu fully reveals his strength. Gohan expresses confidence as if he were able to access his full power, he might be able to defeat him. While this confidence might have been misplaced, it does reveal something key. Gohan still believed in his rage boost potential. That belief highlights just how enormous the gap is between his passive state and what he's capable of truly doing when provoked. Now, when it comes to Cell versus Dabura debate, some fans like to argue that Cell would still have the upper hand due to his ability to regenerate, his immense moveset, and the sheer number of techniques he's absorbed. It's a fair point, and one I considered valid myself at one point. Cell's adaptability and survival instincts give him a wide range of strategic options. He could, in theory, fight smarter, catch his opponent off guard with a well-placed technique, or even recover from near-fatal damage thanks to his regenerative abilities. Especially since, in canon, Cell only needs a single surviving Cell to make a comeback. If we assume that Cell is somewhere below the rage-fueled version of Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, and Gohan without his rage is equal to Dabura, then it's entirely plausible that Dabura would have the upper hand in a straightforward clash. Especially if Dabura starts at full power. He could deal with Cell swiftly and decisively, just as he did with Kibito, whom he defeated instantly and effortlessly. In short, while Cell's regeneration and wide array of powers make him dangerous, they may not be enough to compensate for a raw power deficit. Dabura, being described as on par with the weakened Gohan, is still placed higher than a Cell who peaked 7 years earlier. And given that Gohan's defining feature is his rage-based amplification, it stands to reason that this version of Gohan Dabura fought was still stronger than Cell's base level. Ultimately, the narrative and official material alike consistently support the idea that Gohan's anger is more than just a personality quirk, it's a transformative force, making the fight between Dabura and Cell not even close. Cell vs. Bojack might not be the most common matchup fans throw around, but it's one of the most interesting. Both villains represent different stages of Gohan's journey, Cell being the enemy that forced him into greatness during the Cell games, and Bojack being his opponent in the movie continuity who tested his limits yet again. And if you follow Dragon Ball Z long enough, you know that the movies tend to crank the power scaling higher than the anime itself. So the real question becomes, could Bojack's raw movie tier strength push Cell into a corner? Before we can even begin to answer that though, we have to break down just how strong Cell really was. Let's rewind to where his story ties into the androids. Dr. Gero, despite being physically weaker than the Z-Fighters, manages to slip away and activate his creations. Android 17 and 18, who immediately proved to be on a whole different playing field. Remember, Trunks' sword was sharp enough to slice Mecha Frieza into pieces instantly, yet the very same blade is effortlessly caught and brushed aside by 17 before he proceeds to humiliate Trunks. Meanwhile, Vegeta in his Super Saiyan form actually looks competitive against Android 18 at first, but her endless stamina wears him down and the fight quickly flips. Vegeta gets battered and broken while 18 barely breaks a sweat. This alone sets the androids leagues above anything tied to Mecha Frieza's power level. It's at this point that Cell enters the picture, still in his imperfect state. Kami had been tracking his growth for years, which prompts him to finally merge with Piccolo. The fusion transforms Piccolo into something that the series dubs as Super Namekian, granting him enough power to match Android 17 blow for blow. But the catch is still there. 17's infinite energy means he'll never tire, where Piccolo eventually will. Just when the fight reaches its breaking point, Cell appears and his mere presence sends Piccolo into shock. Cell's power-up completely overwhelms Piccolo's best attack, leaving him bodied and broken. Soon after, Cell overcomes Android 16 and absorbs 17, and evolves into his semi-perfect form. Now here's where the scaling becomes pretty crucial. We never get a clean multiplier for how much power Cell gains when absorbing others, but the results speak for themselves. His growth is so extreme that even the Saiyans realize they're hopeless without pushing beyond their current limits. This forces Vegeta and Trunks into the hyperbolic time chamber for a year of training. When they emerge, they've tapped into an advanced transformation, Super Saiyan Grade 2. For Vegeta and Trunks, even bulkier variations that sacrifice speed for power is great. That level of effort tells us just how drastic the gap had become once Cell absorbed even a single android. Once Vegeta ascended into what fans often call Super Vegeta, the tables turned completely against semi-perfect Cell. In this state, Vegeta had skyrocketed so far beyond the androids, the base Super Saiyan forms, and even Trunks' initial improvements that Cell were absolutely outclassed. Cell was getting dismantled so hard that his only option was to play on Vegeta's pride. Knowing how much Vegeta loved the challenge, Cell baited him into allowing the absorption of Android 18, and in classic Vegeta fashion, the Saiyan Prince let his ego decide the outcome of the entire planet, and the result is Cell reaching his perfect form. And with that transformation, the role is immediately reversed. Vegeta, who had been dominating moments earlier, couldn't even keep up. Perfect Cell casually dismantled him, even taking a final flash head on, an attack powerful enough to erase half of his body, only to instantly regenerate and laugh it off. The only warrior left who could potentially stop Cell was Trunks, who had been hiding a new form all along. During his hyperbolic time chamber training, Trunks tapped into a transformation that went beyond Grade 2. This became known as Super Saiyan Grade 3, a form described in supplementary material as giving roughly 10 times the raw output of Grade 2. But it came at a heavy cost, speed and stamina. Trunks had fallen into the trap of raw brute force without balance, which Goku himself criticized during his own chamber training. Even Cell mocked the form, copying it himself to prove that anyone could bulk up in that way, but it wasn't viable for real combat. Still, Trunks' strength impressed Cell enough that he didn't finish him off. Instead, Cell decided to raise the stakes and announce a tournament, the infamous Cell Games, a twisted version of the world's martial arts tournament, and it would determine the fate of the planet. When the games finally began, Goku was the first to step into the ring. He immediately unleashed his full power, astonishing everyone watching, except Gohan. That detail mattered because deep down, Gohan had greater potential than his father. At first, Goku seemed pretty evenly matched with Cell, trading heavy blows, but the truth was darker. Cell was never fighting seriously. Goku realized this mid-battle and shocked everyone by surrendering, declaring that Gohan would surpass him and take the fight further. And he was right. Cell himself realized that Gohan's hidden strength was terrifying, which is why he tried to psychologically break him, unleashing the Cell Juniors to torment the Z-Fighters and ruthlessly beating Gohan down. It wasn't until Android 16 sacrificed that Gohan finally snapped, unlocking Super Saiyan 2 for the first time. What followed was complete domination. Cell at full power couldn't even scratch Gohan. Gohan tanked his strongest blows like they were nothing, and for the first time, Cell experienced genuine fear. And keep in mind that this was a Cell who had already recovered with the Senzu Bean after fighting Goku. Even then, he was manhandled. Desperate, Cell tried to self-destruct and take the Earth with him, but Goku's sacrifice saved the day. Or so it seemed. Out of the explosion came Super Perfect Cell, stronger than ever thanks to Saiyan biology allowing him to recover and grow more powerful from near-death experience. He even revealed that he had copied Goku's instant transmission, making him deadlier than before. And in the manga, Cell explicitly boasts that his power had reached a point where he could destroy the entire solar system. Yet, even that level wasn't enough. Gohan, despite being injured and drained, unleashed everything in one final Kamehameha clash. With Goku's spirit guiding him, he overwhelmed Super Perfect Cell completely, ending the battle once and for all. And that's when we pivot to Bojack Unbound. The timeline becomes pretty fascinating. The movie takes place not long after the Cell Saga. Gohan hasn't aged a bit, and his appearance and strength are identical to his Cell game self, which means that when Bojack steps into the scene, he's staring down the exact same warrior who obliterated Cell at his absolute peak. Though you can argue that he actually got weaker since this was Gohan's plot to be weaker as the Cell games went on. After Gohan's legendary clash with Cell, it doesn't really seem like he kept pushing himself forward. By the time the Buu Saga rolls around, both Goku and Vegeta openly point out how badly he's let himself go, with Vegeta mocking how soft Gohan has become and Goku straight up admitting he stopped training seriously. At best, maybe Gohan sparred occasionally here and there, but for the most part he abandoned fighting altogether once peace returned. That's why Bojack Unbound is so interesting. Despite not being years down the line, Gohan is still basically at the same strength when he fought against Cell. Yet, even that level wasn't enough against Bojack. The villain and his gang casually toyed with the Super Saiyan Gohan, who was stronger than even Goku had been during the Cell game. Bojack in particular is hyped to a ridiculous level, with sources saying he's unleashed energy that could shake a galaxy. Now translations have always been messy here and there, and some argue it could mean just one galaxy, and others suggest it might refer to the entire quadrant, which would mean countless galaxies. But since the dialogue doesn't go as far as explicitly saying he threatens a whole quadrant like Broly was said to, the safer interpretation is that Bojack is just galaxy tier. Still, a galaxy-busting opponent is nothing to sneeze at, and he was stomping Gohan without breaking a sweat until Goku literally punched through the afterlife to land a blow on Bojack and tell his son to quit holding back. That's when everything changes. Gohan finally snaps, transforming into Super Saiyan 2 and instantly wipes the floor with the entire crew. He doesn't just overpower Bojack's team, he blitzes through their strongest attacks and one-shots them in rapid succession. Even Bojack himself gets annihilated in a single decisive strike. So case closed, right? Galaxy-shaking Bojack outclasses Solar System-busting Cell. Well, not exactly. The Solar System claim is attached to Cell is often misunderstood. When Cell declares he has enough power to wipe out the Solar System, the key word is enough. That doesn't mean that's all that he's capable of. It simply means that he has more than the required amount of energy to pull it off. The phrasing implies it's the bare minimum he could accomplish, not the ceiling of his strength. In fact, there's plenty of evidence suggesting Cell's true power is far beyond Solar System level. When he first achieved perfection, Dende and Namek Elder Mori both foresaw his energy reaching a scale that threatened the entire universe. Later, when Cell charged up a Kamehameha, Piccolo remarked that attack shook the universe itself. And this is the Dragon Ball universe, which is infinite in size and split into 4 quadrants. Even Namekians light years away could sense the energy, with characters openly acknowledging that the universe itself could be wiped out. Some try to downplay this by pointing to Bulma's old claim that she had just scanned the edge of the universe, but that doesn't hold water. Bulma isn't a space traveler, and her tech knowledge doesn't equal cosmic awareness. Contrast with Jacko, an actual galactic patrolman who explicitly corrects the idea, saying that not only the Milky Way vasts beyond comprehension, but the universe itself is filled with countless galaxies and the scale is infinite. And then there's Cell's own words. When preparing his Kamehameha, he flat out says he'll blow away everything until a void of space remains. Even if you want to nitpick Piccolo's phrasing as if the universe itself was trembling, the sheer number of statements, visions, and reactions from characters point to Cell operating on a universal tier. To argue otherwise would be ignoring just how consistently he was portrayed at that level. So while Bojack might flex galaxy-shaking strength, Cell's portrayal leans towards the energy of beings who's reached across the entire infinite Dragon Ball cosmos, which makes the Cell vs Bojack matchup far less one-sided than it seems at first glance. When debating whether or not Cell could really be universal, one common counter is that the universe was never shown to shake, but the line of reasoning doesn't hold up when you actually look at Dragon Ball as a whole. Visuals aren't always provided for power scale effects, even when the statements confirm them. For instance, in the Cell Saga itself, Goku senses Vegeta's energy and says it feels like the planet is crumbling. And while we never see the Earth itself visibly quake, we do see distant areas far removed from the battlefield, reacting to Vegeta's overwhelming aura. That's indirect evidence and not on-screen literism. The same logic applies to Cell. The franchise repeatedly makes use of this felt, not seen type of scaling. Android 18 during the Tournament of Power specifically says Jiren is making the whole world of Void tremble, but we don't see the world of Void shaking on screen. The statement itself, though, is accepted as fact. Similarly, when the Spirit Bomb is gathering universal energy in the Buu Saga, the process is only narrated. We're not given a montage of every star system and realm contributing, yet we know that that's what happened. Lack of visual doesn't erase the reality behind the dialogue. And in Cell's case, we have an extra reason to take Piccolo's words seriously. The Daizenshuu explicitly confirms that beings like Kami and Dende, and by extension Piccolo, have the far-seeing arts. This ability lets them perceive what's happening across the lower realms, including the living world. So when Piccolo says Cell's Kamehameha is shaking the universe, he isn't guessing or exaggerating. He's perceiving it directly, the same way he sensed disturbances across the Earth earlier in the series. Piccolo is a consistent and credible narrator of events on this scale. If we accept that, the conclusion becomes obvious. Cell doesn't just measure up to Bojack, he eclipses him entirely. Even if you assume Bojack's full power could pressure or even temporarily put Perfect Cell down, it wouldn't matter because the moment Cell regenerates into Super Perfect Cell, the fight is done. At that point, Cell has more raw output, better regeneration, and a wider arsenal of techniques than Bojack could ever hope to match. Remember, Cell isn't just a powerhouse, he's a composite fighter with the DNA and techniques of Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, Frieza, and King Cold. That gives him adaptability, martial arts skill, and almost an unfair level of versatility. Bojack may have brute force and hype statements, but Cell has proven universal level energy, regeneration, instant transmission, a tactical mind, and a toolkit filled with techniques that Bojack has no counter for. So if we're being honest, this Cell versus Bojack debate isn't much of a debate at all once you scale Cell properly. Universal Cell is above galaxy-shaking Bojack every single time.